Okay, it's 6:30. It's time to call the Murray City Council meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Blaine Hackey if he'll lead us.
If you please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Blaine. Okay, I will ask for the approval of the council meeting minutes of August 6, 2019, if there are no changes or corrections.
I move approval of the August 6th minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. Thank you. Special recognition, swearing in new Murray City firefighters, Michael McClure, Skylar Van, I'm going to kill it, so I'll skip it. Kevin Davis and Jordan, Chief Harris and Jennifer Kennedy presenting.
Let's go ahead and have the four new firefighters come up and line up right here if you could. Mayor, City Council, thanks for the opportunity tonight. I appreciate it. As you know, this is a very exciting time. We have four newbies, or promies, I like to call them. I want to start off by a quote. Chief Croker, who was the chief of the fire department of New York, had this quote here. "I have no ambition in this world but one, and that is to be a firefighter. The position may, in the eyes of some, appear to be a lowly one, but we who know the work which the firefighter has to do believe that this is a noble calling." And I want you to think a little bit about that, because in a way, I'm a little jealous of you guys. First of all, your youth and your hair and all that, but more importantly, you got this whole exciting career ahead of you. And it's a very exciting time in your life. I remember it from 25 years ago when I was standing right there. But I want you to remember that noble calling. And if you remember that you're here to serve the citizens, and that's what this is all about, you'll have a great career. Okay, that being said, let me introduce you. Kevin Davis, please step forward. All right, Kevin was born and raised in Payson, Utah. He's got a wife and 3 kiddos. I'm sure we'll meet here in a little bit. Joined the Army during his senior year of high school, and now has been 7 years in the Army National Guard, so quite impressive. Worked and volunteered in the EMS for over 6 years. Currently lives in Santa Quin. Hobbies include, I feel like I'm on the dating show here. Hobbies include shooting, playing sports, and pretty much anything outdoors. I kind of like his story about how he got into the industry here. His high school friends told him that we should be firefighters. All they do is, I quote, play video games and eat food. But I think at this point, you've kind of learned we do a little bit more than that. But all right, welcome, Kevin. Okay, next, can we have Jordan Guccione step forward? I love this guy's last name. Jordan grew up in Kansas, and he is part of the Kansas Guccione Italian mob, I believe. Actually, the only member, I think, actually, so too. Graduated from UVU with an associate's degree in fire science. Was a volunteer firefighter and EMT in Summit County. He also, in 2017, became part of the Utah Air National Guard Fire Department. Right. Skiing, tennis, rock climbing, backpacking, fishing, and riding his motorcycle. And he's currently working, albeit a little slowly because we're keeping him busy, on earning your private pilot's license. All right. Thanks, Jordan. Okay, Skylar Van Eckelenberg. Close enough. Okay, born and raised in Utah. Actually was a graduate of Cottonwood High School, class of 2015. Good grief. Graduated from SLIC in 2018 with the General Associates of the Sciences. Then he went to Weber State and got his paramedic certification. Now, when someone's getting their paramedic, they're required to do a certain amount of ride-alongs at the fire department. And he was assigned Murray Fire Department to do his ride-alongs, and that's where we first met Skylar. So 2 things happened during that ride-along. One, I think he fell in love with Murray City due to our culture and work ethics. This is actually what he said. I'm not making this stuff up. And just sees this really way that he can give back to the community where he grew up. And the second thing that happened is he made a lasting impression on us. When we did interviews, I had several people from my department come forward and say, hey, don't miss this guy. He's worth hiring. So everything you do in life has some ramifications. So you did good, Skylar. Good. All right, Mitchell McClure, our California boy, graduated from Cal State Long Beach. How did he get interested? His dad was a firefighter with the city of Pasadena for over 20 years. Yeah, he's currently retired.
Yep.
Yeah. His wife, Cammie, they've been married since 2012. They moved here 2 years ago with their little girl who just turned 2, who is completely living up to the terrible 2 stereotype. Yeah. And probably the end of this month, you're going to have one more, a little boy.
Yep.
So very exciting time. Mitch here is a gardener. He's got the green thumb. Not only does he wants to grow most of his own produce, but he wants to get a few chickens and be kind of self-sustaining. So very interesting. Nice. Excellent. All right. So at this time, I think we'd like to do is let's get all 4 of you to stand right up front here. And you're going to get sworn in, excuse me.
The other comes later.
Excellent. Stay right there. You actually passed the first test. None of you repeated "state my name," which is very good. I think that's a record, actually. So good job. Okay. So at this point, we have a tradition where we have a loved one come up and pin your badge on, their official badge. So if you want to go ahead and bring up your loved one, and then after we pin the badge, then I'll give you a chance to introduce your family that you're with tonight. Sometimes the new shirts can be a little tough. Just push it right into the skin. Just jam it in there. All right, Kevin, let's just work our way down. If you could just introduce your family that's with you here tonight. You just want to stand up. That's fine. I see you got quite the load there.
Our 3-week-old, his name is Raiden. And then my son, Kai, that's his new costume he got today. He's really stoked about it. And then my daughter, Helen.
Mm-hmm.
This is my wife, Cammie. That's my little daughter, Brittany. New one in the stomach. We're still not quite sure of the name yet. And then this is her grandmother, Mary Jean.
All right.
This is my sister, Gretchen. Her 2 kids here today are Ava and Samuel. Her other 2 kids couldn't make it tonight. Her husband's out with them running around.
Okay, Skylar.
I have my mother, Anna, and then my grandmother, Pam, here tonight with me.
Okay. All right. One more round of applause for our new probies. You may be seated. See how that they won't be like that very long. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and welcome to Murray City. We're very proud of our city. We're very proud of our first responders. You guys and your families are welcome to stay, but if you want to leave, you're welcome to leave as well. For the rest of the meeting, good, they're going to stay. Oh, nope, there they go. Okay, moving along, we're going to consider a joint resolution of the mayor and the municipal city of Murray City, Utah, declaring September 9th through the 13th of 2019 Public Power Week. Mayor Camp and Blaine Hackey.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll read the resolution, and then I'll give you a chance to say a few words. Blaine, we're happy to have our General Manager, Blaine Hackey, here, and Operations Manager, Bruce Turner, and we'll hear from our City Forester, Matt Erklin's here in a few minutes as well. So this is a joint resolution of the Mayor and Municipal Council of Murray City, Utah, declaring September 9th through 13th, 2019 as Public Power Week. Whereas Murray citizens in 1913 voted and approved the formation of the community's own municipal electric utility, and whereas the citizens of Murray City have owned and operated an independent electric utility, Murray City Power, for 106 years, providing our community with safe, reliable, and reasonably priced electricity. And whereas Murray City Power is one of over 2,000 consumer-owned electric utilities that comprise the American Public Power Association, an organization that annually promotes Public Power Week. Now, therefore, we, the Mayor and Murray City Municipal Council, do hereby declare September 9th through 13th, 2019 as Public Power Week. Be it therefore resolved that we hereby encourage the citizens of Murray City to participate in the Public Power Celebration event on Thursday, the 12th of September, to honor 106 successful years of public power in Murray. And be it further resolved that our community acknowledges that the success of the Murray City Power has been achieved through the combined and cooperative efforts of our employees, citizens, fellow city departments, elected officials, and industry partners, including the Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems, the Intermountain Power Agency, and the American Public Power Association. And if passed, be passed, approved, and adopted by the Mayor and the Murray City Council this third day of September 2019. Would you like to take action before you?
Yes, I will make a motion that we adopt a joint resolution declaring September 9th to the 13th as Public Power Week.
I'll second.
Jennifer?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Blaine, if you'll come up, I'll present this resolution to you, and just also say that we're very, very proud of our power department here in Murray, and we have an outstanding department, and they're involved in the community in a lot of different ways. So thank you and congratulations
Thanks, Mayor.
on 106 years.
106 years. I wasn't around then, but thank you. This gives us the opportunity once a year to brag about our municipal power system. And as the Mayor mentioned, we're one of 2,000 municipally owned cities, utilities in the country, and one of around 50 municipal cities in Utah that own their own power system. We provide electricity as a group to about 20% of the state of Utah through our own power systems. But it is a work of a lot of people. We have 45 dedicated employees, and we try to keep outages to a minimum. And thank you, Mayor and Council, for this recognition. On September 12th, as was mentioned, we will have an open house at the park, right next to the park building, there by the rec center, from 4 o'clock to whenever we go home, 6:30 p.m. We have foot-long hot dogs and the works for that. And we invite the council and mayor and staff members and anybody in the city to come to that. So we appreciate the efforts of not only my employees, but also the council and mayor for supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hackey. I can say from experience the hot dogs are great, and it's fun to watch the linemen do and all the power employees do what they do. So if you can make it over there, please do. The next on the agenda, presentation of the 2019 Jim and Jean Hendrickson Beautification Awards. Matt Eckerlund's presenting.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is our 35th annual beautification award ceremony, and every year it's really tough to judge all these beautiful properties throughout the city. But I would like to introduce the Shade Tree Committee and Beautification Committee. We have Judith Payne, Janelle Nelson, and Dr. Jan Evans here. Darren Bird wasn't able to make it, but he wished us all luck. So if you guys can come up here and we'll just have you guys do your districts, and we ask that if there's any award winners in the crowd, if you come up and accept the award. Thank you. So District 1.
Okay, I'm Judith Payne, and I represent District 1 on the Shade Tree and Beautification Committee, or Commission. And the winner we've chosen this year is from the residents of John Maurice, right there. And I don't know if John's here. He told me when I delivered the award to his home, he's very shy and he didn't think he could make it. But we loved his property and all of the different trees and the variety. It was just a pleasure to talk to him, and we expressed our appreciation for what he does to lift up the neighborhood that he lives in. Really a gorgeous property. You should all drive by it after this meeting. So. And District 2. Oh, you're 3. Darren. Okay, so Darren's not here. So Darren Bird would normally be here, and the winner from District 2, oh, lovely here, is John and Jamie Botcher. Are they here tonight? Oh, come on up. It's great. We were so happy to find your property and recognize, as you can see, from the just really great fence to to everything that you've done there is very nice. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. District 3.
Yep. Okay, Tammy Marco, is she here? Come on up if you're here. Okay, this is a residence that looks like they've done some new landscaping and things out the front, a new pathway and some rocks, and really beautified their area over there. So if she's not here, we'll find her and give her certificate plaque. So, okay, thank you.
District 4's representation is Jim Hendricks, and that is the people, he and his wife are the people that this award's named after. Jim has given such great service for such a long time to our committee and to the city, but he is not well and wasn't able to come tonight. But the award for his district went to an adorable lady who I loved meeting, Connie Alstrup. There you are. And Connie was so adorable. Come on up. I mean, I have not seen anyone almost giddy. I won. Are you serious? I want you to see her yard is as beautiful as she is and as charming. And her neighbor was there, and her neighbor said, "Oh, you think that's beautiful? You should be her neighbor." She does, and went on about all the attributes of this lady and what else she does for her neighbors. And I thought, what the spirit of Murray. So thank you. It was so nice to meet you. Thank you. And congratulations. I represent District. Did you? I represent District 5, and of course, I think that is the most beautiful area of Murray. And I had the honor of giving that award to Brent and Jolene Shimada. Every year, it becomes more beautiful, and every year I think they should win. And the next year they go, it's even more beautiful. They should win again this year. But this year we actually awarded to them. And they have the spirit of Murray. They're not only beautiful on the outside, but they're beautiful as neighbors and community members. And it's an honor to have you as my friends.
Thank you.
They've known me before when I first moved in a long time. And then some. So do not ask them any questions, please. So thank you, and thank you for all of the beautiful yards that we have in Murray.
Okay. Oh, wow, we're not done. So our next award, I don't know if the mayor does this or not. Okay, well, all right. This, we have a couple here. The mayor's award for the single family. Home goes to Steve and Glenda Vigil. Are they here tonight? Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Come. All right, so we're going to take his name right off of this. I apologize. And Darren would normally be here. I don't know. You know Darren Bird, yes?
I do know who he is.
Well, he's out of town. He gave me an email that said I must read this, and so here it goes. He said, I feel bad because I enjoy watching the homeowners honored. Please remember to say this about Glenda. He said, she is the winner for the Citywide Mayor's Award. She does an amazing job with her yard, can be found working there regularly this year. Not only did she do an amazing job with her yard, but she also has been helping a neighbor who is being treated for cancer with their yard. She is an outstanding neighbor and resident of Murray, so thank you for that. Oh, very nice. And the next one is the Mayor's Award for the Xeriscape. And I was lucky enough to go meet Julie Taylor and Bill Pratt. Why don't you come on up? And look at their interesting yard. We drove by several times and were just really intrigued, had to drive by again. And if you drive by 3 times, it's a winner. It's clearly caught your eye with its intricate and detail and variety. And they say that they're color theming it so that in the spring, if you drive by, there should be a lot of blues. Yeah. So make sure you put that on your calendar next spring.
35% water savings so far.
There you go. That's what we like to hear. So that is fabulous. It was wonderful to meet you. Thank you for coming tonight and for the work that you do. All right. Janelle, I'll let you do the next one.
Okay. I missed the judging this year, too. I was in Virginia visiting my sister, so I'm seeing some of these the first time. So, wow. Is someone here from Studio 6 Extended, say? Great. Right. Okay, we'd like to recognize them as they're our commercial property this year. So great. This is... Yes.
There's a lot of competition for that.
There is. That is probably the toughest because Murray has some beautiful, so a lot of nice gardens around on the. Yes. Okay. Congratulations.
And our last but not least one at Lost Creek. Do you have a representative? You're going to. Thank you. Lost Creek has never been anything but absolutely exquisite. And they've won several times, and we're grateful and glad to be able to have you pick that up. Well, as the Shade Tree Committee, I'll say the last word because I usually do in the meeting. Thank you for keeping all of your yards so beautiful, and thank you for helping us honor these amazing Utah Murray citizens. Thanks. Makes my life pretty.
Mr. Chair, may I say a few words?
Please do.
Dr. Evans, I don't mean to take the last word away from you. But I do want to express appreciation, first of all, to those who are winners. There are many beautiful properties in our city, and so thank you for the work that you do to keep your properties so beautiful. Sometimes in the mayor's office we get calls from complaints from folks who about folks who haven't been so diligent in keeping their yards up. So this is a lot of fun to give these awards every year. So thank you. Secondly, and finally, thank you to the members of the Shade Tree Commission. You, Janelle and Judy and Jan, you guys your fingerprints are all over the city in a good way with the work that you do with the Shade Tree Commission. So thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Well, and from the council as well, thank you for making Murray even more beautiful than it already is. We appreciate it. There again, if you want to stay, you can. If you want to leave, you're perfectly welcome to. Sometimes I wish I could go with you.
Why don't we?
Yeah. Okay, next will be, thank you. Next will be citizen comments. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Step to the microphone, state your name, city, and residence, and fill out the required form. Jan has a required form. You can either fill it out before or after you speak. Be aware also that we're listening, but we can't really talk about anything that isn't on the agenda, but we are listening to your comments, and we'll do what we can. Thank you. Yeah, and it's not a public hearing. Do we have anybody for citizen comments? Well, that was easy. We'll move on to the public hearings. Staff will sponsor presentations. The first one is to consider an ordinance related to land use amendments to the zoning map for the property located at 5920 South Fashion Boulevard, Murray City, Utah, from the CD Commercial Development to the GO General Office Zoning District to be a PO Professional Office Zoning District. Melinda Greenwood will be presenting. Roderick Enterprises is the applicant. And before we go there, I would ask, we received a letter, and I would ask Diane Turner to read the letter into the record.
Okay, this has 10 points, so bear with me. For the record, Gillen Lane is only 20 feet wide. The houses on Gillen Lane face east, so the impact on these properties is to their front yards. Gillen Lane is a private lane and dead ends. The property owners on Gillen Lane and the subdivision directly east, known as Bellevue and Afton Avenue, have raised some concerns and spoke out at the Planning Commission meeting. In no way are these residents trying to scuttle the project. They are simply asking common sense questions as to appropriateness of a P-0 zoning. 1, it was brought up in the planning meeting that there was no posting as required by the applicant. The applicant, Mr. Roderick, stated in the record that the postings were torn down several times, yet none of the resident owners that frequent the area daily ever saw any notice. Again, for this meeting, no one ever saw any posting, and as of Monday at 10 p.m., there is no evidence of any posted notice. Why were there no public notice signs about these 2 meetings posted on the property so the public could know about this zoning change? It was suggested by Mr. Smallwood that notice must have been sufficient due to the large body of people at the meeting. However, only 3 people addressed the board. The bulk of the attendance was therefore Kimball Associates project, of which many citizens took time to attend and speak. Number 2, on page 4 of the Murray City Planning and Zoning meeting minutes from July 18th, 2019, why are there 2 different requirements for setbacks and a buffer zone? It is ambiguous with how it is stated. Please clarify that those required setbacks are for a 35-foot building and a 50-foot building, and clarify what the setbacks and a buffer will be for the proposed PO zoning change if it is accepted by the Murray City Council. A 100-foot setback from Gillen Lane would consume nearly 1/3 of the land on the west border. That does not seem like enough land left to place building zoned PO on, is it? Number 3. How many buildings are there planned for this property, and how can you decide to change the zoning if you do not know what the size and the footprint of each building is going to be? Discussions about the process say that a site plan is not necessary at this point, which flies in the face of common sense that the council would have to vote on this type of zoning change without some sense of the footprint of the buildings, parking, location of entrance and exits from the property, and other impact items. Number 4. There are 3 University of Utah buildings that are further south of the proposed property for the zoning change. The 5-story building is over 600 feet away from the residential property owners. The 3-story building is over 200 feet away. The 2-story is over 300 feet away from residential property owners. The same for Intermountain Healthcare further north. The new Cottonwood Clinic, which is 4 stories, is 550 feet away from residential property owners. The Medical Tower number 5 building that is 4 stories is over 300 feet away from residential property owners. Mr. Roderick's property is not adjacent to the University of Utah property or IHC property, as was suggested in the minutes from the zoning and planning meeting in the July 18th meeting, except for the small, tiny piece of the southwest end of this property, which only borders Fashion Square Drive and Steward Primary Care, which is a 1-story building. How can you justify this size of a building with this proposed zoning change that close to residential property owners on Gillen Lane? Number 5. How can you justify this zoning change when all of the buildings that surround the property on Fashion Boulevard and 5900 South are 1-level and 2-level buildings? In paragraph 2 of the planning meeting minutes, Mr. Roderick further explains that, quote, initial plan was to build his corporate offices for himself, but there was interest from the medical community and the plan changed, close quote. Would not the medical community still be interested in nice 2-story buildings that conforms to the existing Fashion Boulevard zoning and construction of 1- and 2-story buildings, or were they just interested in 4-story buildings that could be had by the new PO zoning designation just recently created by Murray City? The area is pretty much medical already. with the current GO zoning designation. Number 6. Murray already has more than its share of tax-exempt properties, somewhere in the neighborhood of 35%. From the minutes of July's Planning and Zoning meeting, it states, per Mr. Roderick, quote, he wants to be consistent with whatever IHC and the University of Utah are doing in the area because the subject property is located in the middle of both. Mr. Roderick stated, quote, there was interest in the medical community and the plan changed, close quote. Mr. Roderick stated he wanted to keep his company headquarters here. So which is it going to be? A Roderick corporate office or another tax-exempt tenant or owner? Number 7. The traffic on Fashion Boulevard and 5900 South is already bad enough. Has there been an impact study done to evaluate how this would change the traffic patterns with the extra capacity a PO zoning would provide? With McMillan Elementary School so close and school children walking to and from school, what about their safety? At this point, it is already difficult for residences of the Bellevue Avenue and Afton Avenue subdivisions to turn south on Fashion Boulevard. Number 8. If this PO zoning change is accepted and a 50-foot high building is built on this property, what will that do to the property values of the homes on Gillen Lane and 2nd East? Who wants to buy a home with hundreds of people looking down into your front and backyard? Although Murray City does not determine property values, it is still a question of impact the planning and zoning and council should consider. Number 9. If a 50-foot high 4-story building is built on this property, will there be enough parking for employees and customers? And will there be enough handicapped parking spaces? If not, how is this going to affect the neighborhoods in the area if there is not sufficient parking? This is a question that cannot begin to be answered without knowing the answers to these and other questions. Number 10. The interest of the Rodericks to improve Murray is duly noted. We do, though, believe that Roderick Enterprises did not acquire all that property without having a plan what to do with it. The number 2 habit of Stephen R. Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is to begin with the end in mind. It is hard to imagine Roderick Enterprises does not have the end in mind. To simply approve a PO designation without a vision of the end is premature. The current designation of office is sufficient for a properly sized project on the parcel. Approving a PO designation at this time in light of the concerns of the property owners on Gillen Lane and others in the vicinity is premature until these questions can be addressed to the satisfaction of the citizens of Gillen Lane, citizens who have lived on Gillen Lane for many years.
Thank you, Councilwoman Turner. We'll hear from, consider from Melinda Greenwood.
Yeah.
Members of the council, mayor, audience, thank you. I wanted to just start with a brief overview of, I guess, reasons why we are here and what we're deciding and some of what we are not here for. So we have on the agenda this evening a zone map amendment. A zone map amendment is strictly to change a zone. We don't look at project specifics. We don't look at square footage of a building, aesthetics of a building, how high a building is going to be. We just look at the surrounding uses, what our general plan recommends the property be used for. So a lot of the comments that we have received today and still may receive through the public hearing process may not be germane to what we're here to decide, which is just simply the zoning. Another thing I wanted to point out is that we will have at a later date a general plan amendment come forward. The general plan amendment usually, or at the Planning Commission, was done concurrently. The general plan amendment didn't make it on the agenda for this evening, so that'll come at a later date, and this evening we're just considering the zone map amendment. That being said, let me just go through some of the particulars about this property and the application that we are considering tonight, which is the zone map amendment. And I apologize, the slide up here is written for both the general plan amendment, which will come later, but the zone map amendment is what we're here for this evening. Currently, the property actually has 2 different zoning designations on it, which is odd. We would like to have one zone on the single property. The property location is 5920 South Fashion Boulevard. And it's currently has a designation of commercial development and general office. The application is requesting to be moved to professional office. Oops. I need to exit out of that. Okay, this is just an aerial shot of the property that shows where it's located over there on the corner of 5900 South and Fashion Boulevard. And that's not going to work. Jared, will you run that for me? Yeah, thank you. So this, again, shows the property and the 2 different zoning designations that are on the single piece of property. The south half is showing that it's the commercial development, and the north half is showing that it is the general office. This is a look at some point last year, there were, I think, 7 different properties that were combined into the single property that is this right now that has the 2 zoning designations. So the one on the left shows the 7 different properties, and then on the right it shows that it has been combined to a single lot. This is the future land use map. So it shows the categories. That just south of there we have the professional office, and then the office is in the light blue. And the application again is to go from the CD and the general office to the professional office, which is the zone that exists to the south. Here's just a few different pictures of the property looking from the various directions. These were taken earlier this year. The site has been changed quite a bit. It's pretty much just raw dirt right now. All the vegetation has been removed. There's a few more pictures of the properties. Then again, what we've done as staff is we've taken a look at the various surroundings, the uses that that exist, what our future land use map has designated, and then what the general plan amendment or general plan has suggested for future land uses. And we have come to the conclusion of 3 different findings that we would like to present to the council tonight. The redesignation of the future land use map and the zoning map for the subject property as requested would be consistent with development pattern for the area and will allow for development of the property to the highest and best uses available. The second findings is the requested amendments have been carefully considered based on the characteristics of the site and the surrounding area and the policies and objectives of the 2017 Murray General Plan. And they've been found to be in harmony with the goals of the general plan. The last is the proposed amendment of the zoning map from GO to CD to professional office is in harmony with the goals and the objectives of the Murray City General Plan. A couple other items that I just wanted to address. Again, some of the concerns and comments that have come in already just are not items that we address at this point. That comes later on when an application to develop the site comes in. We have conditional use permits for some of the uses that would come in on this property, and there would be another public hearing later on down the line with the Planning Commission. That would also require public notifications be sent out. One thing I did want to touch on, so we have, because we know that not one method works for everyone, so through this whole process, we have mailed 80 different property owners a notification of the public hearing. We do have an ordinance that requires the applicant to put a notification on the property, and that was provided to them. We also publish notifications of the public hearing in the newspaper, and we have it on our website, on our agendas. So there's multi-tiers here where we are making attempts to get the public notified in case one of those doesn't come through. So I think that's really it for now. We do have, I think Michael Roderick is here with us this evening. Thank you. And I don't know if you have anything to add at this time, and then if not, we can just let the council open it up to public hearing.
Before you come up, does the council have any questions for Belinda?
Not at this point.
I've got one quick one. In the packet, I counted 90 addresses on the mailing list. Did all of those go out? Or was your count of 80 the ones that I saw that I wondered why we would send to Holiday and Sandy and Mill Creek?
Yeah.
Unless they own properties.
Yeah, those are, we are required by law to also contact or provide notices to affected entities, which we consider to be neighboring cities, utility companies, those type of things.
So were all of those mailed?
Yes, they were.
Okay, thank you.
They were mailed for the Planning Commission and then should have been mailed again for the public hearing schedule this evening. So 2 different times.
Okay, thank you.
Can you tell me the difference between general office and professional office? What are the main differences?
The main difference, let me just turn to my paper. The main difference is the allowable height. In general office, there is a maximum building height of 30 feet within 100 feet from a residential property boundary. However, you can increase that height by 1 foot for every foot of distance from that property boundary.
Beyond 100.
Correct.
Beyond 100
yes,
feet.
Correct. And the professional office, the allowed height, so general office was 30 feet. The allowed height is 35 feet up until the 100 feet, or at the 100 feet from the residential zoning. And then after that, it can automatically increase to 50 feet. So you don't have that incremental increase for every additional foot of setback. It just goes from 35 to 50 feet.
But you still have the 100-foot setback.
Correct.
Okay.
An R18 zone, so a typical residential zone allows 35 feet.
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Roderick?
Thank you. My name is Michael Roderick with Roderick Enterprises, 1214 East Vine Street in Murray, Utah. Murray has been our home of our headquarters for over 20 years, just up on Vine Street. But it even goes back to the 1940s where my family was in the service station business. And we had a service station on 6400 South and State Street. that is now Fashion Plaza where Macaroni Grill is, and I think that shows a little bit of that quality that we help to bring to Murray City. We were also one of the original partners in Fashion Place Mall as well. The campus that the University of Utah has right now on Fashion Boulevard, we developed that in conjunction with the University of Utah, and sold some buildings and helped them with the others. So we have a long history with Murray. We want to continue to be located in Murray and do business with Murray. We love it. We love the tax base. We love the power people and the fire and safety and police. Everything is top notch about Murray. This site was a little bit of an opportunity for us. We did look at it for corporate headquarters, and then we were able to acquire a couple other pieces. As she mentioned before, there were 7 parcels. Our intent is to put our whole corporate headquarters there, and if we have the ability to lease some space to some medical professionals, we're going to do it. So we are kind of fishing down both streams a little bit. We're going to do office and medical is what the initial plan is, and we'll comply with the zone and do a first-class job like we always do in Murray. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Council have any questions?
Not yet, nope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Melinda?
I apologize. I think I misstated earlier. I just need to do some clarification on the heights. So in the general office, up to 100 feet is 30 feet, and then it's 1 foot
35.
for every 4 feet. Yeah, apologize about that. So to get up to 50 feet, you would need an extra 60 feet from that initial 100 feet. So apologize for that. Just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
One more question. Does that include any air conditioners or any units that go on the roof? Is that heat or that height? I mean?
It doesn't include the penthouse part.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And before we open it up for public hearing, one of the reasons we don't look at what a project might be when we do a zone change, because there were a lot of comments about that. How can we do a zone change without knowing? I was on planning and zoning before I came and did this job. And 2 of my favorites were Mount Medical Imaging on Woodrow at 5400 South. When that building was presented for a zone change, it was a single-story drive-through bank that was presented to the Planning Commission. And obviously it didn't become a bank. And then the one that kept me up more than a few nights was Make-A-Wish on Winchester. Make-A-Wish proposed to put their building there. They needed a zone change from R18 residential to GO, general office. We didn't have any other zones that they could fit in. And the Planning Commission had the unenviable task of unanimously voting no for the zone change, even though it was Make-A-Wish, and the plan was beautiful. And if you don't think that keeps you up at night denying sick and dying children their final wish, it was a tough one. But if they had not raised the money to build that building, then anything in a GO zone could have been allowed, which would have been up to a 4-story office building on that particular property. And that would have had an impact in the surrounding neighborhood. We since created a zone for specific areas that mitigates that, but we voted no, and the city council at the time overturned us and said yes. And fortunately, they got it built, and it's worked out great. It's a wonderful facility to have in Murray, and great to have it available for what they do. But that's why we don't look at it. You never know what's actually going to get built. As Mr. Roderick said, they had different intentions going forward on this, and things could change again. So we look at the zone, and it has a list of permitted uses, and you have to decide, are those permitted uses compatible with the area? And that's why we only look at that. Also, as a legislative body, we do zone changes. The Planning Commission is the legislative body for site plan reviews and other things. So under state law, we do 2 separate things. So there's actually reasons for why we don't look at that. And it got frustrating because every time we see a zone change, we used to see, here's what it's going to be. And and you all come and speak to that, and it's not something that we get to look at or should look at or have in mind, because again, as I said, things change. So quick explanation before we get into this.
Thank you, Councilman Brass. We'll open up to public comment now. The rules are the same, 3 minutes. Please pick up a form from Jan, fill it out, and we'll move forward. Does anyone want to speak to this?
I'm Kim Kimball, 5998 Gillen Lane. I'm at the very end of the lane. I want you to tell you that Mr. Roderick does a really nice job on his projects. There's no two ways about it. I'm right against the University of Utah property, and we've had very little problems there. There's no buildings against us. It's all parking area. There are a few problems that develop, but that's normal in any area. So I compliment him. We were excited to hear that he was going to be moving down because he does such a nice job on his projects. The concern we have is my wife works over at IHC, okay, and I go over there every day, and so I went over there and paced. That's a 4-story building that they have put in over there, the new building they put in. And I thought, well, let's step back 100 feet. I'm looking at a building like this, and all those windows up there and people watching. So I go back another 50 feet. 250 feet, I'm still looking like this at the building, and I'm thinking, this is what we're up against here. By changing the zoning, we're going to be having this building, a 4-story building, looking down on my entire private life. I know there's not a person in here that would enjoy having that happen to their life. Okay, that was my biggest concern. We always knew that there was going to be commercial there. The people that live on Gillen Lane, the Lunskogs, their grandfather is the one that owned all of that land in there and sold it, and it got sold and divided amongst the kids as it went. And finally, we actually owned a piece of property in there back in the 60s before even Murray had a master plan. Well, we felt comfortable with the idea of having a 2-story building there. But when that 4-story building came up, I just sit there and think, we're going to have to live with this? And so that's what the PO zoning does. I'm okay with the idea. If you go down Fashion Boulevard as far as you can on both sides, there's only one building that's bigger than 2 stories. Only one. It's the one where the old Social Security building was. And they actually had 3 stories on top of a basement. Later they finished the daylight basement in there, but it's a 3-story building right there. Everything else in there is 1-story or 2-story. You go over to the IHC. IHC has got setbacks on the long distances, huge piece of property. Mr. Roderick has got 3.6 acres in the property. We would love to have him as a neighbor. I don't know why medical people don't like 2-story buildings, why it has to be a 4-story building. I don't quite understand that. I mean, it's zoned this way right now, and it makes more sense to continue with what's been going on there instead of all of a sudden throwing 4-story buildings there. We're going to look into our property and into the neighbors behind us property on 2nd East. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you get a form from her, please? Oh, okay, thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Julia McMillan, 5994 Bellevue Avenue, and McMillans have been in Murray all along. My kids walk along Bellevue Avenue to McMillan School, and it's going to be another decade before they're done doing that because they're fairly small still. And I'm just concerned about the traffic because last year, 2 of our neighbor kids got hit in the crosswalk. They had a crossing guy, and they stepped off, and somebody didn't see him. Luckily, everybody was okay. I mean, it was terrifying, but everybody was okay, and that's just with an empty lot there. So I'm just concerned about the increase in the traffic. It could happen with a 2-story building even, but even more particularly with a 4-story building. So I agree that we should keep it as the 2-story building option, if that's at all possible.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Thank you. Anybody else?
Janet Hill, 5970 Afton Avenue, right off of Bellevue. It's kind of confusing in there. This morning, I took the opportunity to meet with Mr. Hall and ask the questions specifically of the differences between the professional office and general office designations. And I had been confused before, thinking that the professional office was the only zoning that would permit restaurants and entertainment type facilities, and see that in both of those zonings that it is conditional use and would have to be an exception or approved by the council or the board or somebody approved for that to take place. But knowing that the developer, I think everybody in this whole situation is a nice person. I mean, we're not trying to be mean or belittle anyone, but we have to realize that the developer is permitted, after a zoning change, to change the idea or change it to anything that is on the approved use classification. And so I think we need to look at what is the worst case scenario, which for me would be the very first one under professional office, which is a hotel. And I also have looked at, I've been trying to go through the Murray City website, and it's the things that I have found, I assume, are the current things. And I was looking at the land use under the general plan. It is dated 2003, so there may be a more current one that changes these goals. But under the goals in this plan, it says, as a goal for future land use changes, one of the goals is drawing a line around existing commercial precincts to protect adjacent residential areas. New land uses at the perimeter of existing residential areas should help stabilize existing neighborhoods and support the creation of a quality residential environment. Yeah. And then the second goal listed in here is to preserve and protect the quality of life for viable residential neighborhoods. And I don't think, something happens to Mr. Roderick, somebody comes in and gives him more than a couple million of for a hotel, that would be acceptable in the PO. And I think that's a reason to vote against it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Melanie Kimball, and I actually live on Gillen Lane. I'm on the end. We own 2 properties there. And I do have some concerns about the parking situation with the zoning change to professional office. A little bit about me, raised in Murray. We chose to come back to Murray to raise our family, so we've been here for years. I do work for IHC and work in the new Cottonwood Clinic that is on Tosh campus. The building has 4 stories, and it's not even filled up yet. With the proposed PO zoning changed, which would be right next to my home, I'd be looking at it every day. My concern is, how's there going to be enough parking with this large of a building on this property? Every day I go to work, the parking spaces are packed as it is. There's employees on one side, and then there in the front of the Cottonwood Clinic, there is space for patients and handicap parking. Okay, I work on the 3rd floor at Cottonwood Internal Medicine, and I check patients in and try and meet their needs. And it seems that patients, especially the elderly and handicapped, have a hard time on busy days. And I hear them complain about how hard it is for parking, and to drive around a few times to eventually find parking. And even if I leave for lunch on the employee side, you leave for lunch for a half hour, come back, you're lucky to find parking still. So I would hope that this would be addressed so that patrons, customers, employers, and patients would have room to park and not end up parking in other neighborhoods or down my lane where I live, especially with a 4 or 5 story building there. I think parking needs to be considered a number one concern. And so thank you for letting me voice some of my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd just like to say the point was brought up earlier, basically, that what if all of you lived on Gillen Lane? How would you vote? And I would definitely consider that because a lot of times we think, well, if it's not in my backyard, it's okay. If it's not going to affect me, it's okay. But if you could put yourself in the people who live around there in the Bellevue area, on Gillen Lane, even on 2nd East, if you could think, okay, if I lived there, how would I vote on this? Would I want a 4-story high-rise right next to my home that's going to cut out every type of view that they had or have now? So when you do vote, or whoever it is that votes to decide on this, if they would consider that and vote how they'd feel about that, I think that would be the best way to vote.
Excuse me, sir. Could you state your name?
Raymond Poole.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Melinda, do you have anything else?
I do just want to add that each of the zones that the city has parking formulas that we look at when we look at a particular use, and the project that actually does come through us with an application, we apply those formulas, and that's how parking requirements are determined. But that would be at a later state when an application actually comes before the city.
Yeah, I'm looking at the GO because I wanted to do some comparisons. In the general office zone for medical, dental, and related office uses is 1 stall for every 200 square feet of net usable area. Anything else in that zone would be 4 stalls for every 1,000 square feet. So medical offices have a much higher parking requirement. And I do get it that you run out of parking. I used to be a Diamond Medallion member of Intermountain Medical Center's frequent flyer program, and parking over there is a nightmare. I learned if you park on the ER side and you know your way through the hospital, it's a lot quicker. But it gets that way. And I go to a couple of the other office buildings off of Fashion Boulevard, and parking is a problem. But as Melinda said, we do address that in code. The other one I looked at was a CD zone, the commercial zone, has a 35-foot height limit to 100 feet also. And then it's 1 additional foot for each of the 4 feet, as you said. And GO is 30 feet to 100 feet and then increases up incrementally. So you have the potential for the same thing. I did look at the uses. Like I said, I was on planning and zoning. I can't help but read the zone for each one of those and looked at the uses. And while it says hotels above 3 stories, it would be, I don't think you'd see a hotel built there because they usually like to go to 5, and that would be too tall for that property. So anyway, just some of the comparisons for comments.
So the Planning Commission did hear this item on July 18th. They held a public hearing the same night, and they did forward a positive recommendation for approval, actually on both the general plan amendment and the zone map amendment to the City Council. So our recommendation, based on the findings, the Planning Commission recommendation is that you approve the zone map amendment as presented.
Mr. Roderick?
Just one comment that kind of disturbed me a little bit. There's been no talk from our group or anybody of building a 4-story office building on that side. I'm not sure where that came from. In today's world, well, let me shoot back. In the old days, you could build office. It was very standard to have office space 9 or 10 feet inside the space. So maybe that's where people are thinking that we can do a 4-story building. Today's world is much different. Tenants want 12, 13, 14 feet of clear space within their suites. So, the max is 50 feet. I don't anticipate at all would go much more than 3. I mean, it just won't happen in today's world. You gotta build to what the market wants, and 9 or 10 foot ceilings just don't cut it anymore for an office space. And as far as a hotel, we're not in the hotel business. We would never do a hotel on that particular site. So that's it.
Thank you. Yes, please come up to the microphone.
Yes, I just want to mention, I think the world of Mr. Roderick. He's done a wonderful job. He is a very good person to have in the area. And, here's the problem with us as people that are out there. Without seeing a site plan, we have no idea what's going in. All we hear is 4 feet. And so, if we knew 3 feet, all we can do is, we have had no numbers to work off of. And so you got to understand that the basis that we're working off of is what the PO designation indicates. So.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the council for discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion. I will move to adopt the ordinance relating to land use, amends the zoning map for the property located at 5920 South Fashion Boulevard, Murray City, Utah, from the CD, Commercial Development, and GO, General Office zonings to the PO, Professional Office zoning district.
I'll second that, since I'm the only other one who can. I would like discussion before we vote on the motion,
I would
though.
too.
I absolutely agree with you. All you have to look at is PO, and truly that's all we have to look at. And I had read that zone, and I saw the hotel one as item number 1 also. There are a couple other items on there that cause me concern. But I drive by that property frequently, and so I'm familiar with the depths and such, and I did the same thing as whoever else mentioned where they paced it off. I think it was you also. I just did that to my backyard because I've got a land use problem in my backyard. When I bought the house, it was a farm. Now there's 62 really, really big homes back there that look down on me. So I sympathize with you, and we had a 4-story office building built right up against our residential neighborhood also. Worked out all right, actually. Ironically, the neighbor who complained the most, anyway. But that is what we look at, and is it appropriate to that area, and looking at all the different properties that are there, and what the general plan involved. And I have been through 2 general plan developments, and the most current one actually is 2017. I don't know if you Googled general plan or if you actually went on the website and pulled it down from our notices, but if you Google something, it could be like, it could go back that far, because the previous general plan update was, I believe, 2006. 3. We approved it when I was on planning and zoning, and then we approved it when I was on the council, so it was right that transition 3 to 4. So the new one is still relatively new. But again, I would agree with the findings of the Planning Commission that it does meet the intent of that zone. So that's my reasoning there.
Yeah, I mean, I read all of these to you, and I understand and commiserate, and you know, I really do understand these issues. The concern is, for me, this is a zoning issue, and these other issues will be dealt with at another time, and it won't be with the council. So what we really need to vote on here is the zoning map amendment and that change. And based on the staff recommendations, it seems to me it also makes sense. So.
And one other thing I'd like to answer, I don't disagree. We're all frustrated with the amount of tax-exempt properties in Murray. The Intermountain facility and the University of Utah's facility are tax-exempt because they're both nonprofits. I don't believe that Mr. Roderick's property will qualify for that, so it will be subject to property tax, which actually is a good thing for Murray in a way. But just to clarify that, this property, you know, short of you selling it to somebody else, will be on the tax roll. And that's all I've got. So.
Okay, with that, we'll put it to a vote. Jennifer?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. With that, the motion carries.
And we do appreciate you coming out. It's a difficult decision. I sat at a panel at the University of Utah for a Master's of Public Administration class, and they said, what's the toughest thing you handle when you're on the council? And it's these types of issues. Because we do recognize, I mean, we live here too. And as I said, I've been impacted. Everybody gets impacted eventually. Zoning issues are the most emotional because it's your home. It's the biggest expense you're ever going to have, hopefully. Not, you know, barring medical issues. And we all care about it. So, but we do thank you for coming out and talking.
Something else too with the next hearing, please look to your neighbors. Make sure if you don't get a notice that one of your neighbors does and get to that meeting. Okay, with that, we'll move on. Consider an ordinance related to land use amendments and zoning map for the property located at 871 Trip Lane, Murray City, Utah, from A1 Agriculture Zoning District to R18 Low Density Single Housing Zoning District. Melinda.
Give me 1 second. I'm just going to haul this thing right over to the podium so I can go through the slides.
Melinda, your voice has gotten deeper.
It's hanging around that guy at Planning and Zoning.
I noticed that.
Glad to be here tonight. I'm Jared Hall with the Planning Division. I'm going to fill in for Melinda for just a moment, talk about Trip Lane. So this is a request to rezone property that's in the ownership of NeighborWorks Housing Services on Trip Lane at 871 West from from agriculture, A1 to R18, single family residential. This property, a lot of folks are probably familiar with it, just west of the junior high. It has been largely vacant for a long time. This particular request is to allow for housing development to happen there. It's in the A1 zone currently. It's surrounded by mostly R18 zoning. There's power department property to the north of it, residential to the west, public, the school to the east, and then residential to the south as well. The land use map in the future land use map in the general plan does call for it to be low density single family residential. This particular zone fits in there. The requested zone is R18. It's right smack dab in the middle of that land use category, as you can see there on the map. The property, this is a couple of shots looking west at the property and then north across the property. You can see it's mostly vacant, and just up in the trees there are a couple of vacant buildings, residential buildings. Those will be demolished, obviously, if it's rezoned to R18. The future of it is subdivision. Again, we don't talk about projects in the process of going through zone changes, but the obvious future is potential subdivision of the property for single-family homes. With that said, we did make 3 findings that we presented to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission has forwarded those to the City Council, that the rezoning of the property to R18 is supported by that future land use map designation that we just showed. Again, that the requested rezoning has been considered based on the characteristics of the site and the surrounding area. The Planning Commission and the staff felt like R18 was the appropriate zoning designation for that vacant property. That fits in with the general plans, future land use map, and other policies. And finally, that the proposed amendment from A1 to R18 is in harmony with the established low-density residential land use designation of that subject property. The Planning Commission did forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council on a unanimous vote. This hearing, again, was also held on July 18th. So, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
Are there any questions?
No.
Is anyone from NeighborWorks here? Who wants to come up? Thank you, Melinda.
Allison Treese, Lending Manager, NeighborWorks Salt Lake.
I'm Robert Lund, Real Estate Manager, NeighborWorks Salt Lake.
I don't know if we really have much to add. We just think that this is a great opportunity for the neighborhood to add some more residential properties and bring some more good people into the city of Murray. Do you have any questions for us?
Council have any questions?
No.
Well, I agree with you. That's in my district, and it's been a blighted area for quite some time. So even clearing the property was an improvement. Thank you. Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for discussion or a motion.
I guess it's an easier one. I do like NeighborWorks. I like what they do, particularly for Murray. And the work that you've done in rehabbing homes has been, stellar. Those of you who aren't familiar with NeighborWorks, one of the programs they do for Murray is they provide low interest or no interest loans or forgivable loans for low income people to fix up their homes, or for the elderly, anybody that wants to keep their home nice but might not have the funds. They've been doing that, and I think 800 projects in Murray, or is that too high, or total?
That's too high.
I thought so.
We've been there for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Probably about 30 projects.
In Murray, yeah. It was. I looked at your map and it was impressive. So I don't have a problem with this one at all. It meets the zoning. I remember when we put it in the general plan that if A1 properties were going to change, that it should go to R18, low density single family. So I would make a motion to adopt the ordinance relating land use that amends the zoning map for the property located at 8871 Trip Lane from A1 to R18.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Jennifer?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, finally, consider an ordinance amending the city's fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. Brenda.
So you have an ordinance, a budget ordinance before you to amend the 2019-2020 budget. It does 4 or 5 things. One of them is it's to receive and allocate several grant awards that we have gotten. The JAG grant, which you voted on last week, some sponsorship money from Jimmy John's. They keep giving the parks money. We keep making sure that they spend that on additional stuff for the rec programs. Arts and history has been out getting some grants. The other thing I need to do on this budget amendment is we had open enrollment. That happens after we do our budgets. And so we have people that move from families to single coverage, and we have done some hiring of new employees, firefighters, various positions that were open, and I need to move some money between departments for salaries and wages. I can move within departments, but if I'm going to move from, I think this is going from the attorney's office and prosecutors to parks, and finance is actually decreasing our budget. The police have decided that our facilities staff can do a better job than an outside company for cleaning their building, their training center. So I need to move some of their funds in their department to our facilities so that they can take care of their janitorial. The big things in this one budget opening is all of the projects in CIP and that are in process. All the streets projects, the library, air conditioners, anything that's been in process for the CIP fund needs to be rolled into the next year so that they can continue to finish the projects. There are, I don't know, probably 50 to 75 projects here listed. Some of the good ones that you might, the only thing I've really increased is stormwater asked for an additional $200,000 to finish the Utana project. They've run into some issues with contaminated soil, so it's going to take a little bit more money to dispose of that properly. Parks is reallocating some of their equipment money. They're going to use it to redo the Costco mural so that that will all be nice looking again. It should happen, I think he said, by the end of fall. We're rolling over the cemetery niche project that finally I think will get done this year, and various other pool replasters. Facilities, last year, it's a good story, they were going to replace the shop roof over at Shops, and it turned out they didn't need to, so they are reprogramming that money to help with the increased cost of the outdoor pool replaster. So that's part of our facilities that's being rolled over and kind of changed just a slight bit of what's being done. But it's a good thing we saved some money in order to do something else. It's more expensive. So that's it. If you have any questions. Any questions about the project?
I'm just shocked you found contaminated soil in Murray, but does anyone have a question?
It's done by that also.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
You've done a great job with explaining what all the changes are, so thank you for that. And with that, I will move to adopt an ordinance amending the city's fiscal year 2019-20. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Is there anyone here to speak? I'll open the public hearing. It doesn't look like it. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Continue on. Diane.
All right. I will move to adopt the ordinance amending the city's fiscal year 2019 to 2020 budget.
I'll second.
Having been moved and seconded, Jennifer?
Aye.
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 That
Okay,
was a
we'll-
weird look you gave me, Brenda. Like, what are you doing?
I'm just glad she gave it to you. Before we move on to the mayor's report, I was amiss. I didn't excuse Councilman Duponsky and Councilman Hales. They're both excused this evening. Now we'll move on to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two items briefly this evening. Brenda mentioned the outdoor pool. We after finishing a very successful and busy Labor Day holiday out there, the pool is now closed for the season, for the year, and so the replastering will begin on that right away. However, the indoor pool still isn't quite finished with that replastering project. Probably be within the next 1.5 to 2 weeks, then that will be reopened. The only other thing is there's been a number of fires, if you've been following the news at all. There's one of the wildfires that's burning in Tooele County near Lake Point. They have requested assistance, and so we will be sending a crew with a brush truck tomorrow morning, a crew of 2 with a brush truck out there to assist them. So just for your information, probably will be a 24 to 48 hour deployment. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Before we adjourn, my wife and I had a couple of occasions to go to the amphitheater. We went last night to the final concert, and you've done a great job, Parks and Rec, Kim, and the amphitheater is just a great venue. With that, the meeting is adjourned.